A Capitol Hill doctor says that Senator Mitch McConnell's recent freezing episodes are not due to seizures or stroke or other disorders like Parkinson's. McConnell's is back in D.C. as the Senate resumes work. Yesterday, he made an oblique reference to the incident that happened a few days ago.
Now, one particular moment of my time back home has received its fair share of attention in the press over the past week. But I assure you, August was a busy and productive month for me and my staff back in the Commonwealth.
So Scott MacFarlane is in Washington with more on this for us. So, Scott, clearly McConnell isn't really addressing these health concerns head on. I mean, it sort of struck me at that press briefing in Kentucky that his aides didn't seem particularly sort of shocked by the incident, which, one might kind of deduce that they'd seen something like this before coming from him. If we're not hearing anything from the senator, are we hearing anything from his office at all about his health?
The indirect way McConnell and his team have been answering these questions about his health have just fueled more questions rather than ease people's minds. What we've gotten from Senator McConnell's staff twice in the past week were letters forwarded from the Office of the Attending Physician, Congress's in-house doctor, the most recent of which says that the doctor has deduced through his checks of McConnell's records, including his MRIs and his imaging, that there is no seizure disorder, that there is no Parkinson's or stroke. In a previous letter, the doctor had said what he's seeing is potentially symptomatic of dehydration or the after effects of the concussion McConnell suffered in March. But his colleagues, including his Republican colleagues in some cases, have questioned whether McConnell's being transparent enough, whether he's doing enough to communicate the real situation and his prognosis moving forward. And he's going to have a chance to do that in person today. Wednesday is the traditional Republican Party Senate luncheon, which this is not just going to be a focus, it might be the focus of conversation.
Interesting. Well, speaking of what his fellow Republican senators are saying, I want to play a little sound from a couple of senators yesterday.
We may expect that Mitch McConnell will check out for 20 seconds a day, but the other 86,380 seconds in the day, he does a pretty darn good job.
Well, I've practiced medicine for 25 years, and it doesn't look like dehydration to me. It looks like a focal neurologic event. That doesn't mean it's incapacitating, doesn't mean he can't serve, but it means that somebody ought to wake up and say, wow, this looks like a seizure.
All right, so there you have kind of two varying conclusions. I mean, Rand Paul is not too far off, but he's kind of one of a few kind of Republicans that are willing to openly say, hey, this might be concerning. Behind the scenes, what are you hearing in terms of McConnell's leadership role? Are the questions starting to get louder about whether or not he can maintain that position?
Well, it certainly has taken over the conversation here at the U.S. Senate this week, and that's a reality everybody's grappling with, that instead of talking about policy or appropriations, they're talking about Mitch McConnell's health. That criticism about the transparency issue came from not just another Republican senator, but it came from McConnell's fellow Kentucky senator, Rand Paul, an ophthalmologist who spoke at length in front of cameras yesterday, raising questions about that initial diagnosis that this was dehydration or a concussion. Rand Paul said not only does that diagnosis not speak to what we're seeing in these episodes, but he says it's going to fuel more questions about McConnell and his openness about this. The political reality hasn't seemed to budge, though, since this Congress began. When this Congress started in January, there was this small faction of Senate Republicans who were trying to find a new leader, who wanted to oust McConnell and bring in somebody different. That same small number of Senate Republicans will likely be the most vocal, asking McConnell to say more and speak more about this. But McConnell has the loyal support of so many other Senate Republicans, including Mitt Romney, who you heard there, have his back and say McConnell is able and should continue to lead.
Interesting. Scott, thank you very much.